the energy. We are back, episode 3 of Drinking with Brian Bonilla.
Yeah, we should add like some effects, yeah. But
Busy Friday. It is the day we're recording is March 8th, 2024.
yeah,
Been busy.
I know you're busy.
Yeah.
I didn't talk about what you've been working on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
If you watched the Oscars, that the Wayfair spots that came out was created by Havas Chicago, and just been working on that launch. And hopefully by the time you're hearing this, you already knew about it. So go check out that work. I believe Adrian already covered it in Ad Age, so got to give some love there. Thank you, Adrian, for that. So definitely go read about that. But this is not about that. We got some good stuff lined up, Brian.
Yeah.
We got some good stuff. What's the structure of this episode? You want to do an overview?
Yeah, I think, we're keeping some things, we're changing a little bit of things, and we're adding things, and that's just the nature of how this works. We're going to do one agency story of the week, deep dive. And then we're going to do the rapid fire thing again last week or 2 weeks ago. When was that?
Yeah. Valentine's Day, we did Smash or Pass.
We did Smash or Pass. And now we're going to do similar concept. I'm going to rattle off some headlines. You're going to tell me which one you want to deep dive on and which one you have one question on.
Well, I only get one question.
One question. So one deep dive and one question, 1 and 1.
I like that.
And after that, we actually have a special guest. Do you want to talk a little bit about who our guest is?
No, not allowed. People got to keep listening. Nice.
Yeah, but a very exciting guest at the end to talk about some very interesting topics. How agencies are dealing with, neurodiverse employees, but also how agencies are dealing with, or students are actually dealing with, the employee landscape. So please stay tuned for just 2 interesting topics right there. But yeah, let's get it going.
All right, Brian, let's get into it. Agency headline of the week. What do we need to know, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of good agency stories this week. But to me, the one that I think requires more of a conversation. So Barkley and OKRP merge to form BarkleyOKRP. And,
boom.
I know if you're, from the West Coast, East Coast, maybe you're a student who doesn't know these agencies, right?
Yeah.
But you should probably. And the thing is this, right?
Whopper, 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 whopper.
Yeah, if you've ever heard that jingle, then, OKRP is responsible. So you can thank them or maybe you hate them. I don't know. But two very interesting agencies, right? And 2 independent agencies merging. Barkley, a 500 or so person agency, headquarters in Kansas City, offices in New York and Denver and a few other places. OKRP, small agency, borderline small agency, so around over 150 employees, Chicago based. They shocked the industry a bit a few years ago when they won the Burger King account.
Mm-hmm.
And they created that jingle that, the Whopper Whopper jingle that actually, went viral and, people were singing on TikTok and stuff. And I know it was stuck in my head for a bit. So two agencies who, Barkley's been really good at new business, has big clients like Smoothie King, Red Lobster, Motel 6, AMC. And OKRP, has Metro by T-Mobile and Burger King. They've done work for Alibaba and a few other, interesting brands. So these are not, random agencies. These are really well-known agencies coming together to form, an independent shop, over 600 employees with capabilities in strategy and social and content. And I don't know, we're just seeing more mergers in the industry. We're seeing more acquisitions and mergers in the industry.
Yes. Usually we see smaller independent shops get acquired, they sell, they're part of a holding company or a consulting firm or tech. We see that all the time. That's the trend, but this is different. This is new. This like maybe I don't know, but to me, this is like the first like two independent shops merging together, still independent, one super independent beast
Well,
now.
I would say, technically, I wouldn't call them independent at this point.
Ooh.
I think slightly majority owned by a private equity firm. So,
Oh.
the- who helped orchestrate the deal. And, I think, when I spoke to Jeff King, the CEO of Barkley, he coined this phrase big indie, and I think that they will feel probably still like an independent, but I think this is one of those situations where you have to see how the cultures.
So can we call that a big independent shop? Yes or no? Or is that technically not the case because did the private equity firm acquire both of them and put them together and facilitate the merge, or do they just deal advise?
They brought the two together. So they had a small stake in Barkley,
Mhm.
and I guess OKRP was also working with that private equity firm Keystone Capital, looking for deals. And they just the private equity firm had the idea to introduce the two, and it worked out. So they own a slight majority of the new entity.
Interesting.
They did not own a piece of OKRP before that. No.
Private equity seems interesting. That could be a career route of mine.
Yeah, you
I feel
want
like that'd be kinda cool.
I covered private equity when, I was 22 years old covering private equity, and it's an interesting world, and it's becoming more involved in advertising. Uh,
Yeah.
Burrell Communications, one of the legacy multicultural agencies, got acquired by a private equity firm last year.
Mhm.
Um, you know, and what's funny is that we did a story, I think a month ago or 2 months ago about, mergers and acquisitions in the industry landscape. And OKRP was one of the agencies we had heard was being, looked at. And
Yeah. You caught some
yeah, and there are plenty of agencies that people are interested in this technology.
who who's gonna be the boss? Who's gonna be the CCO? Who's gonna be the president? Who's gonna be in charge? And I'm curious, do we know that?
Yeah, so Jeff King, CEO Barkley, will retain his role, but for the larger entity. And then Tom O'Keefe who's leading creative at OKRP, will be the creative chair. And then, Barkley CCO will remain as CCO, reporting to Tom. And, I think, they reassured that there won't be any layoffs and things like that. But we'll see, right? Because you never know. But they made it a point to say that. So I'll be fair to them and say that. But
I feel like those private equity firms don't mess around. They're pretty good. They're pretty strategic. They get in there, they do a complete audit, and there's stages, right? Stage 1, stage 2, there's phases in their planning. So we shall see. We shall see.
I think it's two shops that maybe, people wouldn't have thought of.
No.
Maybe, for different, like a Kansas City agency and a Chicago agency. I think that was a really interesting, merging of cultures. And
Yeah.
the name, I don't know how you feel about the name. We'll see how that tracks.
Barkley OKRP. It kinda looks pretty it looks pretty good on your article.
Well,
Like,
everything is in my articles is
what does this mean for students, Brian?
yeah.
I think for students, it's important, like, now you should be networking there. I think they could be hiring, they could be growing, you know.
Barkley has their own, and I don't.
Oh, yeah, Kate Moore was on the show. She was the
Mm,
recruiter, like, I think, like, 2 years ago. They have, like, that great incubator program.
yeah, exactly. I forget the name of, but they do have an incubator program. So check in on that. I also think, like, as a student, you should know these acquisitions and these mergers are happening probably more often than ever. And you need to know, like, if you're wanting to work in the advertising industry, who owns what, how will this affect, their hiring process, and try to think about it that way. They have a lot of big accounts. They have a lot of big food accounts. If that's something you're particularly interested in, maybe check them out.
Mhm.
They have a lot of different offices. Like I, you know, I think it's very important to understand the business side of the agencies you're trying to work at.
Right. Now you can strategically network and keep a close eye as this thing plays out. But Hey, it doesn't hurt to get in the ground floor right now as you're listening to this.
Right.
Go on LinkedIn, reach out to Kate Moore, go and see who works at Barkley OKRP and the recruiting side of things and the role that you want 2 to 3 years above you, and start saying, "Hey, this is interesting. This caught my eye. I wanna learn more. Can we have
Yeah.
a conversation? I'm aspiring, creative, art director."
Yeah, for sure.
Easy.
But check out the story if you guys want to learn more and reach out if you're curious, if you're in Kansas City and you want to, you want to find out more. But yeah,
Yeah, man. I love it. Great headline. What now we got the rapid fire.
rapid.
Let's go.
I
Kick
was
us off
like,
here.
we should have like the words, like rapid fire and just like the whole thing. Yeah. Yeah, rapid fire. All right. You ready for this?
Yep.
All right, let's do this. Okay. First headline. Why Gut is launching a design practice. What are the, is it skip or pass? What is it? Pass.
Skip.
Yeah. Remember, you only get one deep dive. Just letting you know.
All right. All right. That's
Uh,
cool though. People should read it. Even if I pass, this is my opinion. You should still study these things.
um, Wieden Kennedy lays off 20% of Portland staff.
Yeah, we're gonna have to deep dive that and figure out what's going on because that is a Hall of Fame shop, and we don't want to see people getting let go, and but we need to learn and figure out what the rationale is behind it and how we should network and learn from this. So let's deep dive this one. Not that I love the news, but we need to learn.
Well, I wanted to get your perspective before I talk about it. Like, when you read that article, when you read that headline, like, what's your reaction? Like, what do you think?
Yeah. So Wyden Kennedy, Portland specifically, right?
Yeah.
So what I know just from the industry landscape that it seems, from my perception is that the New York office is doing super well. I believe that's where they house McDonald's and it's probably some of their other large clients. Um, it to me the shift is, do these agencies need multiple locations,
Mhm.
right?
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I believe that the Nike might be the big thing holding them up. Thumbs up. I don't know why I did that. But yeah, I think yeah, it might be because of the New York is doing really well.
Yeah, I mean, look, Wyden, probably one of the more unique shops that we have left, just because of the legacy, of just the founders who've passed now, and um, independent forever, and
By design, right? They can't.
they have a agreement that they won't ever sell, and Nike just do it. A lot of big brands, right? So obviously, whenever Wyden does something like that, it's newsworthy, especially. But 20% layoffs is also just a large number. Well, not large, but big enough to,
Significant
right.
to catch a headline, yeah.
Yeah, and so it was about 90 employees, and that's a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
In Portland, which is their flagship office, the office that um where it was founded, right? So um you, you know, when I spoke to Wyden, obviously they couldn't go into full detail yet of what their grand plan is, right? But they, mentioned that it is about adjustments, um, adjusting to what clients need. Now we'll see what that means in the future. Obviously, Wyden known for its big brand creative work, but especially recently, their social media work has been popping off. You think about the Grimace Shake
Grimace shake, yeah.
works for um,
McDonald's too.
McDonald's. So McDonald's, right? And so, is this a shift of, you know, the types of work they're doing? Is it about clients wanting a different office? I don't know, right? No one knows yet. But,
Right.
they have been expanding globally. They have been, with the Ford account, you know, they've been expanding globally. They have a Mexico City office they launched recently. So I won't say it's all like doom and gloom. I don't think
No.
that, So I think it's a wait and see, but it's definitely something that the industry is paying attention to.
Yeah. So as a student then, maybe the networking towards Wyden Kennedy, Portland specifically in that office might be not the right route at this moment.
Like,
Maybe look at the New York route. Maybe
well,
look at the Mexico City route.
and look, when there's layoffs, right? Like that doesn't mean they're not hiring, right? Like most agencies, like there's layoffs and hires, right? And
Mhm.
especially in the first quarter, you know, like so don't think just because there are layoffs at an agency that means they're not hiring. Um, maybe it's about different positions than
Yeah,
they or so and look, some agencies are laying off and they're not hiring. I'm not
and
saying
there was no loss of a client, right?
well, they had lost just recently they lost a couple clients in Portland and New York. They
Uh,
lost Timble Tax in Portland and Duracell in New York. And then but they also won clients, right? So it's like they won Ancestry and Coffee Meat. So you know, Wyden wins and loses clients just like any other agency, but um, there was no indication that that was the reason behind it in my research. So um,
yeah. Do you think this is a larger barometer for the rest of the industry, a forecast that there's gonna be more layoffs?
I think everyone when when something like this happens, I think people want it to be like the indication of like something, right? And
Mhm.
because when it's something like Wyden, people think like, oh, this must mean the industry is moving away from a traditional creative advertising. The industry has been moving away from that for a long time. So I don't think that's the case. I think Wyden's been adjusting very well in that. And look, I'm sure they have their challenges. But I think in terms of layoffs, I mean, last year was really hard. I think I've written the most layoff stories that I've written, last year than ever before. And that's because there's so many happening. And so I don't know if it's an indication of a continuation. I think it's just what's been happening. And I think agencies have been adjusting, um, you know, their, strategy moving forward. A lot of agencies are trying to stand out or trying to differentiate or they're also just not seeing the revenue from the projects or AOR clients like they used to. I'm seeing big agencies pitching for really small accounts these days. So I think that's what it is more than anything else.
Mm, gotcha. Well, I wish everybody the best of luck, and I'm sure, we there's resources out there. Maybe we can help them out if they reach out to us.
Yeah.
Me personally on LinkedIn, I'm happy to assist and help them navigate.
And I'll tell any student, like, try to reach out to find out more, like from people in Portland, what's happening. If you're in Portland and you're a student, a lot of people love Wyden and Kennedy. And, even if they leave the agency years ago or whatever, they still feel
Oh yeah.
they feel tied to the agency. So don't be afraid to reach out to that network. They're very, connected to each other. So
Oh yeah. All right, Brian. What is the next option here?
yeah, let's keep going. Let's keep going. Let's see. Firehouse Subs launches creative agency review.
Oh, that's good to know for my new business.
Is that a skip or a pass? Is
Oh,
it
wait.
a skip or
I have a question. I got one question.
sure,
Uh,
yeah.
can I use my one question on this? Who was their creative agency for Firehouse Subs?
It
It's in
was
review.
TRG, so formerly known as the Richard Street.
Mm,
Um,
mhm.
which was
Texas.
yeah. But yeah, they lost a couple clients recently. They lost Credit One Bank, which went to Deutsche LA. And I believe Stellantis also left so recently. But Firehouse Subs, smaller account, but still significant.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of creative potential with that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think their roots were in like firefighters. So
Firehouse Subs CMO. If you're listening this, my name is Geno Schellenberger. Love to have a conversation. Love to have you on the podcast. Love to have you in. Love to have you in Chicago here. Grab a beer. Grab a sub.
you want to end it there?
Sure, I think that's great. Brian, that concludes the rapid fire then. Anything else you wanted to go over in that world?
Yeah. I'll just go for some quick headlines that I think people
Yeah,
should.
let's hear them out.
Let's see. Dove and Ogilvy's open relationship inside the evolution of brand agency conflict
Say
policies.
that one more time.
I know it's a long one. Dove and Ogilvy's open relationship inside the evolution of brand agency conflict policies.
Mm,
So check that out. I know everyone liked the Michael Sarah V work.
mhm.
So check that out for a deep dive. And then TBWA hires Johannes Leonardo CEO to lead its New York office.
CEO.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Johannes is what was her position before?
CEO of Johannes
And
and
now she's at TBWA being the CEO there.
CEO of New York, CEO of New York office of TBWA.
TBWA New York.
New York. Yeah.
Oh, shit, my guy Rob Schwartz he was there. I think that's my guy. Nancy Reyes, right, was there before.
Yeah. So now she's at BBDO with Chris Beresford Hill. Uh,
Mm.
with that's a reunite situation. And, Emily Wilcox taking on the role. She was at Johannes for over 8 years. And, Johannes actually had its first Super Bowl spot ever this year with Volkswagen. So
Yep,
check that out.
we talked about that. Yeah, I think that's great. It's important for people to, I think, even students to understand these agency shifts, right? Because the leadership might change, it might trickle down, it
Yeah.
might bring in new clients. Any thoughts there?
Well, and I think too, like, if you understand how the CEO thinks, if you try to do research on them, you might know, like, what are the types of people they like to talk to or like are interested in.
Yeah,
Uh, and or like you said, like, you know, a big, a CEO from a really interesting independent agency going to a holding company network agency, how will that change the culture? And does that say anything about what they're trying to do?
yeah.
And when I spoke to Erin Riley, who was, the CEO of US for TBWA, she said they were looking for specifically a big independent CEO, to hire, so what does that indicate? And I think students should know the ins and outs of that.
Couldn't agree more, Brian. And Brian, you know what time it is? It's
What,
that special time.
what is it? What is it?
We got
Tell
a
me.
special guest. We got somebody joining us. It's not just breaking with Brian Bonilla all the time. We like to feature some other reporters, other industry folks. We got a very special guest today, Lindsay Rittenhouse. Everybody, welcome Lindsay.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Uh, yeah, Lindsay, one of my amazing colleagues, and we work a lot together on different stories. Senior reporter, right? But you cover specifically kind of everything, but
Yeah, yeah.
not that specific, but you do a lot of deep dives, which I think is amazing. And, you've done a few recent stories, and I think, we'd love to have you as a recurring guest once in a while. But there were a few stories in the past couple of weeks that you put out that I thought were really interesting. And we kind of just wanted to talk about them. Right, Gino?
Heck yeah.
Sure. I'll start with maybe a more positive story, which is that agencies are supporting neurodiverse employees and thinking about how to support neurodiverse employees, people who think differently, in various ways on production shoots, in meetings, in the office, in the virtual reality, in this virtual world we're all working in still. So yeah, I kind of just
Mm.
talked to a bunch of agencies about what policies they're putting in place and how they're thinking about supporting their neurodiverse employees. So that was the first story. And the second story is a little bleaker, but I kind of surveyed a group of 15 people who are either students or they recently graduated an advertising program and are looking for jobs. So people from the University of Texas at Austin and recent alumni of the Building Leaders and Creators internship program, which is for diverse ad professionals. And they just describe the anxieties they are going through either heading into this industry, seeing all the layoffs happening. The ones who are in college right now are seeing their professors being laid off, and it's
Oh,
causing a lot of anxiety for them. And then the alumni are just finding it really hard to find jobs right now. I mean, as Ad Age reported today, Friday, U.S. advertising employment fell by 400 jobs in February. So that was the first time since last spring. It's really hard to find a job right now, and they're dealing with ghosting and going to an interview that they thought was successful and not getting any feedback on it, and sending out hundreds and hundreds of applications. So it's really just painting kind of a bleak picture for them right now.
yes.
Mhm.
Well, we'll dive into that part, but first let's start with the positive on
Yeah.
the neurodiversity and the policies put in place. So, Brian, my first question, I didn't mean to step over you if you had one. I want to know what agencies really stood out. What are they doing? What for that? What'd you hear? What are you excited about?
Yeah, so this started with an interview for our best Ad Age's Best Places to Work list, which came out in January. I was talking to Melissa Mahone, who's the executive VP of Business and Operations for Mass, which is an agency that does a lot of experiential work. And she had brought up that they were, thinking in different ways about how to support neurodiverse employees. And some of the things they brought up was like, a lot of their employees have to be on shoots and out, setting up for these experiential events that, they really is their expertise. But they're finding that some people, might be triggered by loud noises. So they shouldn't be on set at a certain time if things, drilling is happening. They're also a remote company. So when they're not out, on set or anything, everything's remote, and they say, cameras can be off because there are certain people who don't want the spotlight on them. There are things like that that you have to think about. And I think it's just a lot about being flexible and open, and listening to your employees, and the different needs that they really, have. And there are some holding company agencies that I think stood out as well. Ogilvy was one of them. They had a lot of things in place. They really had a lot of policies that they put in place around, you know, different food options that they have even on set and on production shoots, and having support animals in the office if that's something that you need, and making sure that. And VML as well was another agency that talked about kind of like getting employees comfortable with neurodiversity, and understanding the different needs that come with that. And certain employees might dim in the office, self-stimulating,
Mhm.
the things that they have to do, and getting other employees, comfortable with that and understanding that. So those are kind of interesting things that jumped out to me.
Yeah, and I thought it was fascinating, and I'm glad you mentioned that. Like, you got this idea from doing something else, and I think that happens
Yep.
a lot for like journalists. It's like you're doing one thing and you get an idea for something else, and it becomes a
Yep.
larger story. Like, can you give me a sense, like in your conversations, like how many employees does this actually resonate with? Like, I know there were some numbers in there and things like
Yep.
that, and like how wide is the neurodiverse spectrum?
Yeah, well, I'm really glad you brought that up. It's really interesting because that was something that I was talking to Nathan Friedman about. He's a former Ogilvy executive who's now the co-president and chief marketing officer of Understood, which is a social impact organization focused on helping people with, who are neurodivergent. And he brought up some numbers. It's like, according to different studies, 15 to 20% of people in the US identify as neurodiverse. So when you're thinking about a company with 10,000 people, let's say, that's 2,000 people who are neurodiverse. And those are people who know they're neurodiverse. There are people who are undiagnosed. Um, and something he brought up was like, even if you don't necessarily know how many people in your company are neurodiverse, there are things you could put in place that just make the workplace better for everyone.
Mhm.
I mean, when you think about even like the ADA compliance regulations, I mean, for that you need curb ramps, on sidewalks. Like, yes, that is for people with disabilities, but does it not help everyone? So, like,
Sure.
when you start thinking about that like, you should just be preparing your workplace to be supportive of neurodiverse employees, even if you don't know how many people in your workplace are neurodiverse.
Right. And, from your, conversations, and obviously you can't interview everyone, but
Yeah.
do you feel like this is something like a lot of agencies are doing? Like, because the inclusion part of D&I don't know if that part always gets, highlighted as much, I'm curious what you think of that.
Well, I I cast a wide net as I tend to do with these stories, and I didn't like you think about how many agencies are out there, and there was maybe what like five spotlighted in this. So
Mhm.
if that tells you anything about how many people are really moving forward with concrete policies and really thinking about this, yeah, I think that probably is a little bit telling. But
Yeah.
it's getting there. I think it's becoming more widely recognized, and seeing big holding company agencies actually put policies in place, I think is encouraging that more people are thinking about it. So,
Yeah. Especially when you write about it and get it out there and the awareness about it, it helps us on the agency side to think about, oh yeah, we should be doing this. Let's get this going here. So we appreciate you writing and covering that.
thanks, Tim.
You want to switch gears, Gino, on the,
Yeah. So that's good news. We'd like to hear that
yeah.
some progress, some momentum, bettering the workplace. Now we got to get people into the workplace, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and this is where I'm going to probably nerd up with you on, because our whole mission is here to help people break in and thrive in advertising, communications, journalism, public relations, all client side, agency side. This is what we live for. So let's dive deeper into the current state on how students or people trying to get break in. So the sentiment is, what are they thinking? What's going on? So they're not feeling too confident, you said.
No, they're seeing, I mean, their, LinkedIn timelines are consumed by layoff announcements. Their own professors, like I mentioned, are being laid off. I mean, that's discouraging.
The professors from the academic side, or like, are they instructors that are working in an agency, or the
I would say
actual?
like the adjunct professors who are
Yeah.
also, working at agencies, and
Mhm.
they're witnessing them be laid off. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean it's discouraging, and then you get like reports coming out that, employment did fall, although I will add to that agencies in particular will cut staff in Q1. So I think, keep an eye on how the
The
employment,
waves.
trends over the next few months. But yeah.
Hmm. So what do we think? What did you have any insights on what they can do? Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, there are certain, there are bright spots, not all doom and gloom, as I believe Marla Kaplowitz, for a CEO and president, said. But yeah, I mean, look out, read the news, look out for the agencies that just want a big piece of new business, apply there because they will staff up when they bring on a new piece of business. Um, be patient, be, be resilient, keep trying, I guess. Um, the best, and get different skill sets. It's skill sets in AI. Try to do some online courses. Build up your portfolio as much as possible. Network as much as you can. I mean, I think people are very open to having conversations, and just if you really want to, work on Nike, I don't know, reach out to who is leading the Nike account at Biden or something. Just like try to have a conversation with them, try to network with them. I mean, no one, I don't want to say no one, but I think people are open to that, and just, yeah, be resilient, I guess.
Yeah. And, this year, right? Because like you highlighted some programs in there too, like the BLAC program and things like that. And, I wonder how aware students are of these programs. And,
Yeah.
um, I don't know, is it, we have seen like some traditional portfolio schools, see suffer a little bit the past few years. And
Yeah.
so I wonder if there's like a way students can have non-traditional ways of finding their way in. And I don't know if you've seen any of this, but I'm just curious, like, what you guys think? Like, is it about finding a non-traditional way in to the industry, or I don't know.
I I think when I travel and talk to students across the country, the biggest issue I see is that they're unsure on what they want to do by the time they graduate.
Mm.
And that is the toughest thing to see. You spend 4 years. I get it. Not everybody needs to know what they're going to do for the rest of their life. That's okay. But what I try to do with this podcast, and I encourage them to follow you both, is to really narrow in on what you think, what position, entry level that you would best fit at. And hopefully that's a growing position. It's in demand. And highlighting that and getting them really specific. Where do you wanna work? What role do you wanna be? Why are you good at that? Those are the 15-minute conversations that I conduct, and it's really telling when they're passionate, then I can work with them. I'm like, "Oh, so you do like this brand. Maybe you can go to work directly for OnCloud, or maybe you can work for Shure Microphones directly." So I think in these moments when there is struggle, it's never a bad idea to invest in further education, your portfolio, skill sets, but also take the time to look and be introspective and be really clear. So when you have these conversations, you can be confident and say, I want to be a communications director at Havas. I want to be a journalist. I want to be an agency reporter at Ad Age. If you can get that narrowed in, that will help a lot.
Yeah.
There's then creative ways too, right?
Yeah.
Then you can do like the pizza boxes and crowbar in there. I think there's it just starts with the fundamentals there. That's my POV. Lindsay, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's great advice. I think, just yeah, try to be as open as possible. I think to that point as well, I remember when I was a journalist entering the industry, and media is pretty similar with advertising, be hard to break into.
Yeah.
And someone told me like, don't be vying for that NBC job. Like, go to the local, newspapers and just try to get your foot in the door. I mean, my first job was an internship. It was paid. I do advocate for paid internships, but it was an internship, and that's how I got my foot in the door. And then, you think outside the box in terms of like where you're gonna work. You're not maybe your first job isn't at Havas or, some other big agency, but maybe it's just a smaller, you know, kind of agency that you can freelance for at first and,
Yeah.
just get your foot in the door.
Yeah, and you never know that small agency could win a big account, and
Yep.
then, right? It's I
Yeah.
think caught up on, like, the names, right? And
Yeah.
I just try to do good work somewhere,
Yeah.
and yeah, and
Well,
I'm curious, like, how recruiters are handling this too, Lindsay, like, you know, I imagine they're getting bombarded, so, like, I know you talked to a lot of recruiters. Are they seeing an uptick in applications?
You know what? I think a lot of the recruiters that I do talk to kind of handle these like executive
Right,
searches.
right,
So
right.
that's a little bit
mhm.
tougher for me to
Oh,
have a real clear insight into. And actually what I'm hearing from them too is that like their business is also being hurt because they're doing and now agencies to cut costs are kind of internalizing a lot of talent searches and stuff. So they're
Mm,
under pressure too. I mean, every area of the business is kind of hurting right now.
yeah.
alright, well, I
Well,
I
Not
think it would
to end on a bad note.
no, no. It's good. They need we need to hear this stuff and, the analysis of the market and, like, getting really clear on what's going on can help them straighten up and expect that there might be a little bit of struggle, and that's okay. And like I'm here, Brian's here. Like we can help tap in our connections and think about ways that they can innovate and break in a unique way.
Yeah, and I think following the advice that both of you said, I think helps. And, like you said, Lindsay, and sometimes it goes in waves, right? It's quarter one, but
Yeah,
look out for the rest of the quarters. So, um, but yeah, that was all my questions, but
Yeah.
I just want to thank you, Lindsay, for doing this. I appreciate it. It was
thank
great.
you for having me.
Heck yeah. You're always welcome.
Yeah.
And then that's all we got. Shout out to Lindsay Rittenhouse for coming on. giving the perspective on those two important articles. Brian, what do you think of Lindsay coming on the show here?
Look, she's great, and I work with her constantly, and I'm just glad we got to get this done, and one of the smarter voices in terms of reporters that are out there.
Follow her, like I said before, on LinkedIn. Turn on post notifications. There's a little bell. Do that for Brian as well. Do it for Breaking and Honoring too. And you'll be in the know, and you'll be at an advantage, right? Like, that's one solution. You just got to be more in tune, smarter on the industry, subscribe to Ad Age. And yeah, that's one way to break in. That's what I've been teaching.
For sure. For sure. All right. Well, this is a great episode.
We'll see you everybody in 2 weeks.
Yeah.